And it's hard for me to say. Sometimes Stephen A's right. Right. Stephen A's right. Dez needs the Cowboys more than the Cowboys need Dez, because the truth of the matter is Dez needs a job. And it's getting I love Dez, but it's getting a little sad, man. You put out Twitter, you'd rather be with the Cowboys, and all the reports are the Cowboys actually aren't that interested in Dez. But here's the other part of this, okay? I was a guy who said, I bought into, I want to see Dak spread it around. I don't want to see him locked into a ball hog. I don't want to see him have to throw it to 88. I want to see if he can hit targets at 5 to 6 a clip with 3 or 4 different guys. I wanted to see all that. I'm a scheme over weapons guy. I want Sean McVay more than I want Brandon Cooks. I want Andy Reid more than I want Tyreek Hill. I want the scheme. That being said, there were 3 plays in the game this past week against the Lions that just had Dez Bryant written all over them. One of them, Dak launches about a 40-yard pass in the end zone. Beautiful pass, hits Tavon Austin in the hands, and he can't bring it in. That has Dez written all over it. Another one, it's like 3rd and 7, and Allen Hurns goes on a slant, and he nails Allen Hurns in the 17. Bounces right off. That has Dez written all over it. A third in the red zone, Dak looks to Rico Gathers. We've all had a lot of hopes written into this former Baylor basketball player, but Rico Gathers, the tight end, and he throws up a jump ball. It's not a great pass, but we're hoping Rico Gathers becomes our red zone threat. That's got Dez Bryant.
He needs to gather that pass.
What's that?
He needs to gather that pass.
Of course he does. And that's got Dez Bryant written all over it. I think Dez Bryant could help this team. I'd like egos checked to the side, because the truth is Dez torched that locker room. He torched Sean Lee. He torched that coaching staff, and it's hard to overcome that. But I'd like to see Dez back.
You're really just making the point. Will, you're agreeing with me, in fact. You just think you're agreeing with Stephen A. What you're pointing out is the
real quick,
irony.
Max. Hold on, real quick. The balancing act goes, he still needs them more, even if they need him. He needs them more.
Look, he did have 2 job offers, correct?
Yeah.
Is he the best available receiver in the world right now, not with an NFL team?
Yes.
So he can get a job in the NFL.
Why didn't he have one?
If he'll accept because he wants a certain salary, or he wants to play with a certain team, or maybe his heart is still in Dallas, I think is also likely. What you're pointing out is actually the irony that even though the Cowboys need Dez more than Dez needs the Cowboys, it's Dez who wants the Cowboys and the Cowboys who don't want him. If you're talking about who wants whom, then you're right. If you're talking about who needs whom, the Cowboys need a receiver, Will. They need a receiver.
They need each other. Stephen A's right. You can have need on both sides, Max, but the truth of the matter is Dez is flirting with the possibility of not playing this season, Max. Seriously. I filled in for you guys one time when you were out, and Andrew Hawkins and I did this together, and he played receiver in the NFL for some time. I said, hey, when's too late? When is it too late for Dez? And he's like, week 4 or 5, you can't learn a playbook. You can't walk into a locker room and expect to pick up the playbook, learn the route tree, and just start playing.
Maybe that's why he wants to be in Dallas.
Dez is flirting with that.
Yeah, by the way, Dez was never really great in terms of learning the routes anyway.
Listen.
The point is he's comfortable in Dallas. He knows that they need a receiver.
The Cowboys have 1 receiver with 10 receptions, and that's Cole Beasley. Their second best receiver is Zeke Elliott. So clearly they need someone.
Once upon a time, the Yankees, the #1 brand in the history of American team sports, by so much it's ridiculous to talk about, 27 championships for the #1 market in the world. Those Yankees were becoming a generic team. Steinbrenner buys the team. A couple of years later, he's suspended from baseball for making illegal campaign contributions in 1974 to Richard Nixon's campaign. He was suspended in 74 for 15 months. You know what happened during that suspension?
What?
Yankees got good. By the time Steinbrenner came back, they went to 5 playoffs in 6 years, 3 pennants and 2 World Series.
And the rest is history.
No, wait. Then the Yankees got generic again. They got generic, like the Cowboys. They were good, but they never went to the playoffs. And then you know what eventually happened? Steinbrenner, again, thrown out of baseball by a different commissioner this time because he hired a guy, Spira, a former gambler, to dig up dirt on a star player of his. Got kicked out of baseball for 2 or 3 years before he came back. And in that time, the baseball people, not having to worry about Steinbrenner's ego gumming up the works, put together the greatest dynasty in the history of baseball, the Yankees from 98, especially to 2001. And forward, they kept making the playoffs, those fewer World Series. The point is, Jerry Jones is the problem. His ego is the problem. The fact that he thinks he knows more football than he does is the problem. If he were to be removed from that franchise for 2 or 3 years, and not even his son, not nepotism, I'm not saying Stephen Jones is bad, but get a real brilliant football guy in there and leave him alone, the Cowboys, because they are the glamour team, would become the desirable location again. they would be in much better shape than they are right now. He's got to get himself removed for a couple of years so they can do their job.
I'm going to tell you something that will shock you. That's not necessary. I think you're going a little bit too far. Here's the reality of the situation. Jerry Jones bought all in. This is a man that sat up there and took every dime that he had and invested it into the Dallas Cowboys. It's his investment. He is the guy that went all in, ultimately captured 3 Super Bowl championships before they've obviously wet the bed over the last near quarter century. And we get all of that. The problem with Jerry Jones, who, by the way, has a football background, played football, knows a thing or two about football, the problem with him is not the fact that he's the owner. The problem with him is that he's the wannabe coach. And usually the guys that he has are either puppets or individuals who are not, that he runs away because they're not. And they're not associated with the Cowboys to the degree that he wants. All Jerry Jones has to do is to make sure that you get somebody in there as a coach who's well respected, but you also have a good relationship with, who has the temperament to deal with who you are. It's not about you, because Jerry ain't gonna change. What they have to do is be able to handle Jerry. And if you can find that guy, Jerry can still be who he is, but somebody better than Jason Garrett can be who they are, and you'll be just fine.